Distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be here with you at the 2022 United Nations Climate Change Conference and representing REMPEC, the Regional Marine Pollution Emergency Response Center for the Mediterranean Sea, and to moderate today's side event that is focusing on the Mediterranean efforts to reduce air emissions from ships. So in December 2021, the contracting parties to the Convention for the Protection of the Marine Environment and the coastal region of the Mediterranean, so-called Barcelona Convention, and its protocol adopted two critical decisions addressing the Mediterranean efforts to reduce ship air pollutions. Okay, so first and foremost, the decision IG 2516 on the Mediterranean strategy for the prevention of preparedness and response to marine pollution from ships covering the period 2022-2031. And the second decision, IG 25/14 on the designation of the Mediterranean Sea as a whole as an emission control area for sulfur oxides, so-called METSOX-ICA, pursuant to the International Convention for the Prevention of Air Pollution from Ships, specifically Annex 6. The Mediterranean strategy set out 7 objectives to be achieved by 2031, including objective number 2, that promote and support the development and implementation of innovative global solutions to mitigate and respond to climate change. Also, objective number 3, that is aimed at reducing and monitoring air emissions from ships to a level that is not harmful to the marine environment or the health of the coastal population of the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean strategy is translated into 190 specific actions over the period 2022-2031 that deals with people, institutions, infrastructure, but also implementation. And over the course of the next 10 years, this will require the collaborative, coordinated, and collective support from the main regional stakeholders in the Mediterranean. In fact, at the end of this month, we will hold the first coordination meeting for the implementation of the Mediterranean strategy. And of course, the main regional stakeholders that will attend this meeting, including those today, will in fact first and foremost discuss an analysis of the needs of countries for the implementation of these actions versus the relevant stakeholders' ongoing activities and projects. And the second objective will be to define concrete synergies, plans, collaborative activities, and defining responsibilities and direction that will feed into the preparation of the program of work of the Mediterranean Action Plan of the United Nations Environment Programme for the period 2024-2025 and even beyond. So during this side event, I'm very pleasured that we'll have a keynote speech from Engineer Yosla Abdelaziz on behalf of Dr. Ali Abosena from the Egyptian Environmental Affairs Agency. We will also cover two, I would say, subtopics. First and foremost, the concerted regional efforts to reduce ship air pollution in the Mediterranean. And we have with us, and also online, Mr. Stéphane Payet from France, Dottore Prof. Pino Musolino from the Med Ports Association, also Mr. Bocci from the West Med Assistance Mechanism, and Mr. Dogliani will be online with us representing the Life for Med ECA project. After that, we'll have Mr. Camille Beaujean from the Marine Environment Division of IMO that will be presenting us the central role of the Mediterranean region in the global efforts to reduce air pollution and greenhouse gases emissions from international shipping. And finally, we are very pleased to have Mrs. Tatiana Ema, the coordinator of the UNEM MAP, with us for final remarks. So without undue delays, I would like to give the floor to Engineer Yosla Abdelaziz from the Egyptian Environmental Affairs Authority. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Frank. First of all, I would like to welcome you all in Egypt, and I hope you enjoying our COP, our hosting to COP 27, and to enjoy the blue zone and the green zone as well, because we did a lot of effort to present it like this for you, and we are very welcoming you all. Thank you. And allow me on behalf of Dr. Ali to say the keynotes and to welcome all the speakers here. Thank you for being here. Honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to participate in this important event, which shed the light on the effort done by the Mediterranean countries to face the environmental challenges concerning air pollution caused by ship traffic in the Mediterranean. Since tell us that global warming and subsequent impact of climate change affect all human activities on all levels, causing economic and social damage, so it comes clear that facing this phenomena required concerned effort at the global and regional and the local level. The last IPCC report this year highlighted the problem we face in our region due to the climate change, includes some topics as follows. The annual mean temperature are now 1.54 above the 1860-1890 level for the land and sea. The ratio of potential evaporation and precipitation has increased over the Mediterranean and North Africa due to the significant decrease in precipitation. In the Mediterranean region, freshwater resources will decline 10 to 30%, due to become more frequent and severe with large-scale shift in precipitation. Due to the combined effort of water and temperature changes, risk to agriculture yield could be 3 times higher. In Mediterranean Sea, plants and animals can't shift northward and are negatively affected by marine heat wave. Several wetland and forest plant and animals will be at high risk to be replaced by invasive species that are better adapted in increasingly dry conditions. Ladies and gentlemen, Egypt has progressing significant on national climate action at various levels. For example, at the institutional setup, Egypt has formulated a climate change national council, now presented by His Excellency the Prime Minister, and now developing a cross-sectional climate change strategy for Egypt. And the National Adaptation Plan updated a framework for low emission development strategy. Egypt has showed leadership at the regional level by being the first country in North Africa and Middle East to issue sovereign green bond with an amount of $750 million to finance 15 projects in renewable energy, sustainable transportation and housing, as well as waste management. We are proudly taking the presidency of COP27, and Egypt considered this phase as an implementation phase. We have almost finished the Paris rulebook. We should now focus on how to implement and accelerate the assessing the mean of implementation. In this regard, regional cooperation is needed to enhance climate action and mobilize climate support. Egypt, as a COP presidency, is working on a number of initiatives to boost climate action and It is worth mentioning to highlight the decision which Frank highlighted, IG 2514, on the designation of Mediterranean Sea as a whole as an emission control area for sulfur oxide, MED-SOx-ECA, pursuant to Marble Annex 6, adopted by the 22nd Ordinary Meeting for Contracting Party to Barcelona Convention and its protocol in COP22 in Antalya, Turkey, last December. We're still taking our national and internal national procedures to be able to ratify to Marble Annex 6. And we know that it's essential. As the first step, then we are moving on to the phase of implementation to the pre-mentioned decision by 2050 as agreed. Our mutual cooperation with REMPIC has yielded to many successful stories last years. And they helped us in this assessment needs of Egypt, and we asked to translate it to Arabic, and they helped us as well. It's also worth mention the announcement of His Excellency the President of Republic of Egypt joining the Ocean Summit One Ocean under the title Protect the Ocean, the Time of Work. Last but not least, I would like to ensure that the keyword towards tackling all the environmental challenges in the region, climate change, blue economy, degradation, pollution, etc., at the meantime is the collaboration between all entities, government, international organization, private sector, NGOs, research center. All together we can find solution to work hard and support each other to keep our environment safe and balanced for the next generation. Finally, allow me again to thank REMPIC, our regional partner, for organizing that event. I wish the outcome of this event to be built upon towards COP27, and thank you everyone.
Thank you, Engineer Abdelaziz, for this inspiring keynote speech, who I think is putting us in the right frame of mind for the continuous discussions today. So now I would like to turn to the first panelist, so Mr. Stéphane Payet, Head Environment and Climate Department at the Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs in France, who is also holding the presidency of the Plan d'Action Méditerranée Exemplaire, so-called PAMEX. Mr. Payet, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to present the action plan for the Mediterranean Sea by 2030. And so I would like first to thank you for your invitation and for inviting friends to present that PAMEX 2030. In fact, it's a two-level document, because you've got the PAMEX 2030 and you've got the PLIF. So the PAMEX 2030 is the political document, and the PLIF is the financial document. So you've got the PLIF, which is the document instrument, financial instrument to implement the PAMEX 2030. So the action plan for the Mediterranean Sea by 2030, so is a political and institutional blueprint to drive transformative actions for nature and climate across the Mediterranean Sea. And this is a programmatic framework, aims at increasing the coordination among countries, regional organizations. It aims at reinforcing the partnerships, and the objective is to raise the profile of the region as a role model leading the transition towards an equitable, carbon neutral and nature positive world. Okay, so it works. So the PAMEX, just a little history regarding the PAMEX 2030. So it was initiated in January 2021 during a One Planet summit organized by the French presidency, by Mr. Macron. And the One Planet Summit was dedicated to biodiversity. It was supposed to be organized in Marseille, but it was in Paris. But we had a kind of request for having a action plan for the Mediterranean Sea. This is why it was presented in Paris, but it was endorsed politically in Marseille at the IUCN World Congress, which was in September 2021. And across the first semester of 2022, during the French presidency of the EU, we put the efforts to mobilize resources for the PAMEX 2030 and for the implementation of this program. Because when you see the discussions with the countries, there is a political momentum to make a plan, but you need financial resources to implement it. So this was the why we have tried to create with the organization NGO, which is called R20, and with the AFD, the French Agency for the Development, we have to create a financial instrument, which is the PLIF, which means PAMEX Local Investment Facility, PLIF. Okay, so PAMEX is structured around 4 axes, as you see in this slides. You've got an axis for the marine biodiversity, one for fisheries, one for pollution, and one for maritime transport. And so you've got 4 axes with a set of 20 thematic actions, and it is supported by a governance. So there is a chair. So for the time being, this is France. Who has got the presidency for 2 years now, and so there is the possibility of having 1,000 Mediterranean countries to take over the presidency in January 2023. And so during that first year, we have tried to fix the governance of this PAMEX 2030. So next slide, please. So, as I've told you, the 4th axis of the PAMEX 2030 is dedicated to the transportation, maritime transportation, and to protect the marine environment and to combat the climate change. The important thing of these 4 axes is really to put forward the best practices regarding the transportation, the maritime transportation, in order to protect the environment. And so one of the ways to make it concrete has been to promote the green Mediterranean ports. This is the main action of the PAMEX 2030 and the PLIF via the electrification of port infrastructure. So this is in line with the IMO for the greening of international maritime transport. Next slide, please. So this is exactly the objective of the action 14 of the PAMEX 2030. So for the Mediterranean ports, we would like to set up a network of green Mediterranean ports and encourage progress towards the transition of low carbon energy sources. And so to promote, for instance, alternative fuel in the ports of the Mediterranean Sea. And so we would also propose financing mechanism for investment, for attracting the private sector on the infrastructures of the port. So the objective is really to attract them and to encourage the private investment in the infrastructures. Next slide, please. So on that slide, you see the configuration of the PAMEX Local Investment Finance Facility, the PLIF. So this is the financial instrument, the financial tool of the PAMEX 2030. And so you see a lot of participants from regional organizations to institutions from the private sector. You've got also AFD or ICID, which are more focused on the questions of development. And so we think we can achieve the action 14, the electrification of seaports, through this PLIF. Next slide. And so the PLIF had a first consortium meeting in Marseille in the mid of July, and we have defined the following scope for the first actions of the PLIF. So the first one is the effective marine and coastal biodiversity protection, which is something which is important, especially regarding the protection of Posidoni in the Mediterranean Sea. So we will try to fund some projects to the PLIF. The second one is the removal of marine litter and pollution. So the idea is really to have zero pollution plastic by 2030. So we've got a project in Morocco for this, and in the lake of Bardwil in Egypt. And so the third item is to promote the sustainable shipping and the maritime transport. And so this is the third point which is important for the event today. Next slide, please. So we had an inception meeting for the PLIF and for this third actions. So on the 26th of October, so just 2 weeks before the COP27, we had a meeting, and so you see on the screen all the partners, all the contracting parties which were attending this meeting. So I've got the ports authorities. So I've got a few ports which have decided to be part of this initiative. You've got the local governments, especially the South region, which includes Marseille and the Andalusia from Spain, and this is the two important regions from the northern part of the Mediterranean to support this action. And the interesting thing is we put around the table also the shipping companies, and so you see on the screen the companies which attended the meeting. Next slide. Okay, so you see on that slide the next step for the coming weeks and months. So during the Forum de la Méditerranée du Futur on the 5th and 6th of December in Marseille, we will sign the founding charter of the PLIF. So all the institutions which are concerned and which want to put this momentum through the PLIF will sign a founding charter in Marseille. They will have a second PLIF meeting after the 26th of October in Malaga on the 12th of December. So just to see which projects we can fund and we can select for the coming year in 2023-2024. And we will have invited by UNEP-MAP. We'll have a meeting in Athens, our first steering committee for the PAMEX and the PLIF. And so we've got a person now who has been recruited to be the permanent secretariat to the PAMEX, and so who makes the link between the PAMEX and 2030 and the PLIF. And she's in Athens in the premises of UNEP-MAP in Tatiana's team. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Payet, for presenting us PAMEX and its local investment finance facility, PLIF. You referred to greening of Mediterranean ports, and this is very critical for the reduction of air emissions from ships globally, but also, of course, in the Mediterranean. So I now turn to Dottore Prof. Pino Musolino, who is connected with us remotely and is the Vice President of the MedPorts Association that gathers 24 Mediterranean port authorities, representing nearly 70% of the total traffic handled in the Mediterranean Sea. Dottore Prof. Musolino, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry that I can't be there in person, but I am really extremely honored to be here today and to give and represent particularly the Association of MedPorts. I'm very interested in what Mr. Payet has said, in the sense that we represent, if you want, the ideal forum where a lot of those actions and discussions can be dealt with, as you already said, representing 70% of the total med traffic and 24 ports associations and even associations of national ports and global groups. We can really be an interesting and effective party in the fostering of a more sustainable, less polluting port system in Europe. If I may share my screen, I would like to show you a short presentation. Hold on a sec. There you go. I hope you can see that. As I said, well, Medport has been born in 2018, so it's just a very young association, but it's comprising the majority of the commercial ports of the Mediterranean. And the most interesting part, it's a forum where European ports and North African ports and Middle Eastern ports are gathering together beyond the restraints of the formalities of the institutions that regionally we tend to represent. We are all sailing, or we are all belonging to the same sea, and we do believe that ports are an incredible driver for innovation and to the implementation of sustainability for the next years. It's been already a very interesting activity, sharing best practices, knowing what our colleagues are doing, and gathering together and having technical committees have allowed us already to make significant steps forward in terms of effectively abating our carbon footprint and particularly our impact on the environment. And we always need to keep in mind that if we really want to win the sustainability battle, we need to keep in mind that the environmental part, of course, it's the most central and the most important at the moment, because time is running and we really have to speed it up. But we also need to keep in mind that building a strong social sustainability together with a strong economical sustainability connected to our ports, these three rings of the same chain can't be taken apart or not considered. So ports have to do a lot. We are trying to do a lot, but at the same time, we also need to be able to give back to our territories and our land, not just a lower diminished impact in the environment, but an increased capacity to create effective and sustainable jobs and investments, so that we can really serve our hinterland and our citizens, essentially. So, well, of course, you have already quoted that the Mediterranean strategy sets 7 common objectives, and at least 2, I'm reporting them on the screen, but at least also 4 probably are directly connected to ports and ports activities. The CSO4 as well, the one that has aims at reducing the litter from ships and all, particularly plastic, all together considered. And the CO6, which is like managing and preserving from pollution the coastal planning. So you see, ports are sort of like the perfect ideal place where all these activities can be tested, also in terms of innovations, in terms of technological innovations, but also in terms of a process, a new business model. So I'm taking the opportunity to show you that we haven't just spoken, we have also acted already. And so, for example, our friends from Tunisia and the organization of the OMMP, there are some projects in progress that are aiming at providing OPS or cold ironing. You choose what is your best definition in some of the key ports, particularly in the port of La Goulette, which is a very important port for Tunisia. And as you can see from some of the data that I'm showing you on this slide, the significant advantages in terms of emissions and in terms of abatement of the same, it's undisputable. And to keep moving forward, Algeciras, I like very much this slide because it shows you that what a port of the future, but which is working today, can and should represent. That's not just of course, the abatement of emissions, but it is a whole comprehensive, let's say, holistic view that the port needs to be integrated with the city, needs to take into account all the impacts on the urban mobility, all the possibilities of not just creating opportunities of investment, but also remediating damages, as well as fighting the invasions of foreign species in the flora and fauna of the neighboring seas and parts of the water. So the port of the future is a port that is inclusive and acts at 360 degrees in terms of lowering its impact and increasing its social value. And it's pointless to remember that among the 17 SDGs, also the one that it's including creating a more equal and less uneven society. It's very significantly important, and ports can play, particularly in certain parts of the Mediterranean, an incredible role in terms of improvement and driving forward their territory. Just to give you additional examples, because I think that the most important thing is that we need to practice sustainability. We should stop enunciating it. I've attended a lot of meetings throughout the years where we are talking a lot complexity, but acting very little, and time is ticking, and 2030 is around the corner, and 2050 it's not that far away. And so we really need to act. And I'm showing you examples of ports that have acted and are acting as well. In Malta, OPS, it's at the top of their planning, and it's already at the advanced planning procurement status. And the start of the construction, for example, in Malta Freeport, will be starting any day right now in the fourth quarter of 2022. And just to give you some significant figures, see in the green line of that chart how much the reduction, particularly in CO2 emissions and NOx and SOx and PM particulate powders, are absolutely outstanding just by simply adopting the OPS technologies on ports. So we have done a lot. We're doing a lot. And Marseille, our friends, I would like to remind you that this association has been born in Marseille thanks to the driving force of the Port of Marseille. And I'm always grateful for the efforts that all our French friends have put to gather us together and to give us the opportunity to work with this association. And in Marseille, a lot has been said already in 2019, not just by making events, but also planning activities and being consistent with them. And of course, Marseille is making a huge investment in the production of green hydrogen. Hydrogen will be, or is going to be, is a good candidate to be one of the breakthrough technologies that will allow us to abate significantly the carbon footprint of ports, and at the same time maintaining very high standards of throughput and efficiencies in our ports. And Marseille is implementing this huge investment, which at the end should ensure the delivery of 84,000 tons per annum of green hydrogen. We are, again, Barcelona, you see, all the leading...
Mr. Musolino,
I'm going to conclude in a second.
Yes, please, because we're running out of time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I know, but you know, it's 24 ports, and giving concrete examples wasn't such an easy task. But anyway, just to you can go through the data presentation. The last point: we can't change what we're doing in our ports and make our ports better without forming the new generations of port managers, port experts, with the right mindset and the right capacity to appreciate what sustainability is, what it's gonna represent for our societies and our territories. And so we are also working in the formation through to training programs specifically aimed at attaining these goals. And the Med Ports Association is an ideal candidate to be the right forum for discussing, working, implementing, and improving in the next years all these strategies and activities. And we will be an active player in the next years in these fields. And thank you so much for your attention and for the opportunity of speaking today at COP27 event.
Thank you, Dr. Prof. Musolino, for your presentation. So our third panelist today is Mr. Matteo Bocci, Deputy Project Leader of the West Med Assistance Mechanism. Mr. Bocci, the floor is yours. And I would like to remind all our distinguished delegates and speakers to try to keep to 5 minutes grand maximum so that we can finish the side event on time. Thank you.
Yes, thanks a lot. Thank you, Frank. Thanks to Rampec, to the UFM for inviting me, well, us here on behalf of the WestMed and the community. UNEP, of course. And it's, I mean, it's great to show the synergies that are happening. I will comment on some of the previous speakers to see how we work together. But first of all, thanks for allowing us to join the consultation. I think it was, it's always great to increase, strengthen synergies, avoid that we go in duplication ways, and this is happening. The synergies are happening very, very well, so we are very glad. And also that we can contribute by raising the ideas, concrete ideas that we generate at the WestMed. I will go briefly in presenting what the WestMed initiative and assistance mechanism is. And then, of course, we will look forward further exchange in the next meeting in Malta to really get concrete in the implementation of these ideas. Although I will focus very briefly on pollution, of course, just to wrap up that as a WestMed initiative, we really cover the broader range of priorities of the Mediterranean strategies. We work in supporting cluster as enable for adaptation and mitigation to climate change, CSO2. We really look, and I will focus on this briefly today, look at promoting green shipping to our technical group. Technical group, by the way, that Medport Alliance Association, sorry, as observer, also involve Plan Bleu, therefore UNEP map, and generated support to the life for Medeca. So we are already very synergetic here, but I will mention briefly what we do in this area. We also look at small ports diversification and also, which is something I touched toward the end, the way to innovate and diversify for smaller ports, hence being able to reduce litter and improve the uptake of energy. So there's some synergies with what presented before by the funding mechanism. And then we also look very recently towards the setting up of a community of practice on MSP so that can really support the management of solution and cooperation. And of course, all of these are also done in cooperation with Rampec, but broadly the UFM and the other regional initiatives. So what is WestMed? Well, WestMed builds upon the 5+5 initiative you might be familiar with. So it looks from countries from Portugal through the North Shore, Malta, and then Libya up to Mauritania. So it's quite a diverse but synergetic group. And as you see from the picture, we try to stretch cooperation from the WestMed countries. And there we have national colleagues. So we have what we call national hubs. So we really work locally and try to create synergies. This is, for example, how we supported the Life for Medeca partnership, etc. And the initiative, which is supported by the assistance mechanism, basically builds upon three main priorities. So safe and secure maritime space, smart resilient bioeconomy, so innovation more broadly, and governance of the sea. It does so also by offering a platform for dialogue between ministries across countries. So it's really an important platform there. The assistance mechanism that I represent works in bringing forward, as was anticipated by other speakers, bringing forward the regional policy priority and the priority identified by the countries, so the 10 countries involved, mainly through project development, hence supporting project idea, creating project partnership, identifying and suggesting financing, also lobbying, if I might say, towards the Commission. So we now have the second edition of the Mediterranean EMFF that really provides funding for cooperation north and south, which is quite unique. But also we work on outreach, etc. But I go quickly on that. And frankly, this is almost my last slide, but I'll take a bit of extra time on these. So these are the type of ideas that were generated by the technical group. So technical group are basically group of practitioners. In this context, practitioners were initially expert at the ministerial level. So there were one or two experts nominated by the countries to really identify strategic area for project development, like gaps, area where further project support might have helped the region, the sub-region. And then we identify at a more operational level, so slightly more bottom-up, a group of, well, the top-down group identified these three area of project support, which I will describe later on. But for each of those, we identify concrete partnership or group of stakeholders so to fine-tune this project and work towards project submission. And this year, which is relevant for the presentation done by ports, this year there's a new call which is unique and being developed in synergies with the WestMed. There's a unique call that support cooperation between North and South country in the Mediterranean, exactly toward these three initiatives. So we were very instrumental to put forward strategy and find money, which is not bad. It took a bit of time, but now we're there. Very briefly, though, these ideas are complementary. So a very first element that we understood and we suggested to RAMPEC that accepted kindly, and this will be further discussed in Malta. The first idea is really try to set up an observatory, a permanent observatory to understand technological development. It's something that Life for Medeca is touching upon, and they will discuss, but the idea is looking really at the broader level in the Med. And on the basis of this observatory, there are two actions, which are pilot action in innovation on the supply side, so ports, and try to develop or understand better what the concept of energy community, if you're familiar with that, means for port. There are a lot of obstacles. The concept is very fruitful, is pushed by the European Commission more as inland and rural area, but as a very strong component in bringing together stakeholders across energy production and consumption value chain. And we thought that this could be a great opportunity to make ports green, sustainable energy hubs, which is really needed. And then the second stream, and I'm done, is really looking at the demand, let's say, of green energy. So looking at how to support transformation of ship owners, how to look at cooperation. And keeping the three together is essential because what we understood is that innovation towards zero emission and sustainable energy in maritime transport, is really falling at a circular trap because ports tend to be looking at ship owner to see where they should invest. Ship owner tends to be looking at ports to see where they should diversify. And what we try to do is bringing them two sides together and through project and pilot, together with our other regional partners and initiative, really accelerate this process. So I just stop it here. There was a last slide on cluster, but I will touch upon that. I do a bit of a spoiler on Thursday. So that was my part. Happy to take questions later on, and thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Bocci, for giving us a concrete example on how a key regional stakeholder may contribute to the implementation of the Mediterranean strategy. Now we will turn to Mr. Mario Dogliani, who is connected with us remotely, and is the president of the SDG for Med, Life for Medeca project. Mr. Dogliani, you had a brief video to show us. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. I think it might be available on your website, so please go straight to your presentation and 5 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes, please, because we need some time for others. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to be with you. Unfortunately, from remote. I hope you can see the presentation. Actually, the video was much more important than what I'm going to say, so I will be quick, and I hope you will have time to see the video. So, as it was already mentioned, Life for Medeca is a preparatory action co-financed by the Commission under the LIFE project, and of course, you know much better than me, or at least as well as me, why a Medeca is necessary. It's just a matter of reducing the pollution in our basin. So these are snapshots from the video. Please have a look to the video where the Mediterranean is asking everybody to cooperate and to help it to save its life. And the video says that we can do, everybody, every one of us can do something. So what can Life for Medeca do? in the time we have until the end of next year when the project will finish. We will, as it was already mentioned by somebody of the previous speaker, we will try to support the implementation of the MED-SECA and hopefully future MED-NECA, providing supporting person who need to some assistance basically from the knowledge point of view. So we will support capacity building among countries, organizations, companies who are interested and willing to make this happen quickly. And the support we will provide we will contribute to provide will be legal, technical, or financial. All that, of course, under the supervision of REMPEC, which I take the opportunity to thank again for having involved us, first of all, in COP27, and then later in the development of the Mediterranean strategy. This having said, I thank you very much, particularly grateful to the organizing country of COP27. Lovely done things you have done. I should have been there. Unfortunately, I am stuck in Lisbon at the European Maritime Safety Agency today. Thanks a lot. We are ready to go. Please stay tuned.
Thank you, Mr. Dogliani, for your presentation on this key topic that is the MEDSOC-SECA. So we have seen the concerted regional efforts to reduce ship air pollution in the Mediterranean. Now we will turn to Mr. Camille Beaujean, Technical Officer, Air Pollution and Energy Efficiency, Subdivision for Protective Measures, Marine Environment Division at IMO, who will present us the central role of the Mediterranean region. Camille, I apologize, you had 10 minutes originally. I hope you can give us the insights in 5 minutes to allow some words for final remarks from Tatiana. Thank you.
Yes, I will do my best. Merci, Franck. Thank you. Good day to all. Yeah, in view of time constraints, I think I'll skip a few of my slides. I think we'll never insist enough on the importance of the Mediterranean Sea in global shipping, obviously, and also on the importance of shipping and maritime activities in the development of the Mediterranean basin. That said, as you know, shipping is a global industry, and as such is globally regulated through a UN specialized agency, which is the IMO in London, which I am honored to represent today. Well, I will skip this one, which is a brief introduction of IMO's work, but the important aspect, I think, is to recall that there is this international organization to provide the regulatory framework for shipping, and this includes reducing the impact of shipping on the environment, but also a number of other implications such as safety and security. MARPOL, I will just quickly mention here the importance of this international instrument, which applies to more than 97% of the global fleet. I'm talking here about the Annex 6 of MARPOL, which addresses air pollution from ships, both local air pollutants, we were mentioning sulfur oxides, particulate matters, but also greenhouse gas emissions, and I will come to that later. Ratified so far by 105 member states, and I will take this opportunity to again encourage all member states from the Mediterranean basin to ratify and implement the provisions from MARPOL Annex 6. IMO and REMPEC are here also to support this implementation effort. Quickly about IMO 2020, to mention the importance of this regulation, global regulation, and how successful has been its implementation. Lessons learned for the development of future measures, in particular on the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions from ships. Importance of collaboration, international collaboration, but also regional collaboration. And I think we have a good example of how regional collaboration can help international agreements what's happening now with the designation of the Mediterranean Sea as an emission control area for sulfur oxides and particulate matter is really the result of important efforts by a number of stakeholders, including REMPEC, to really facilitate the sharing of experience, the collection of data, and bringing together decision makers from the Mediterranean region in order to get to one document, one submission, co-sponsored by, if I remember, 35 countries. This shows a very strong commitment from countries in the region, but also EU countries, to have this instrument being into force. And we expect the amendments to MARPOL Annex 6 to be adopted in December, just in a few weeks' time. And if this is the case, which I am confident it will be the case, the designation will take effect on the 1st of May 2025. I will quickly run through this timeline on greenhouse gas emission regulations. Two things. We have started to regulate greenhouse gas emissions from shipping more than 10 years ago, looking into the design of new ships, looking also into the operational aspects to reduce the carbon intensity. On the 1st of November, we have important pieces of regulations that actually entered into force. They will apply to thousands of ships across the world. And since 2018, we have a global strategy, which is really which sets the global policy framework for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions from international shipping. We have started to implement this strategy with measures, including mandatory measures. And next year in July, we will revise this strategy, and we anticipate that this will include a strengthening of this strategy, including in terms of levels of ambition. I would take a bit more time to present this one, because we have heard a number of the previous speakers mentioning the importance of fuels, of hydrogen-based fuels, and indeed, all the projections we have done show that a very significant portion of the greenhouse gas reduction effort to achieve our targets will need to come from the uptake of alternative low and zero carbon fuels. We're talking here about methanol, ammonia, biofuels, synthetic methane, etc., etc. Today, international shipping consumes more than 300 million tons a year of fossil fuels, and the challenge to switch to these alternative sources of energy is immense. We cannot underestimate the importance of this challenge, and so the IMO is really putting a lot of efforts into enabling this transition to happen through the appropriate regulatory framework. Revising our strategy, we're also developing guidelines to clarify the life cycle assessment of fuels, looking not only into the downstream parts, this meaning the emissions when you burn the fuel in an engine, but also everything that happens in the production side. The safety framework, measures indeed to encourage the use of these fuels, including carbon pricing elements, and the promotion of the needs of international shipping for these fuels. I would just conclude by indeed highlight the importance of IMO as a global regulator, but also of regional cooperation. And I think the Mediterranean region is a very good example of how concrete initiatives, and some of them have been mentioned today, they all go, in my view, in the right direction. Action can be done at the regional level to address greenhouse gas emissions from ships. Again, ratification of MARPOL Annex 6 is an important element. Technical cooperation, capacity building for Mediterranean country administrations. And some of the recommendatory and voluntary IMO frameworks could be used to also leverage action including on the development of alternative fuels for shipping. I think there is really here an opportunity for a number of countries, and I think Egypt is one of these countries which has already identified a huge potential to actually provide green hydrogen for the production of green marine fuels, but also action at the port level. The provision of onshore power supply has been mentioned, but there's also the importance of incentive schemes for cleaner ships that reduce the global carbon intensity of this very important activity. Sorry for having been a bit long. I hand over the mic to you,
Thank
Frank.
you so much, Camille, for this. And the last final remarks from Tatiana Emma, MAP coordinator, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You have
Frank.
2 minutes, Tatiana.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Thank you.
I'll be very fast. So I'm going to summarize some of the messages that came out of the discussion. So thanks a lot to all partners that contributed to this discussion. So the first element that I would highlight is that the contribution of the Mediterranean region in addressing global issues are expected to be quite considerable. First, from the health perspective, we expect the Mediterranean population in the coastal area in 2020-30 was going to be around 600,000 million. So it's very important from this perspective and from socioeconomic point of view. Second, we all know that Mediterranean is a very busy sea, 1% of the entire ocean, but with a lot of maritime traffic transport, up to 30% and 70% of the cruise. So what is generated in terms of pollution is immense, and all the measures taken that we all talk about definitely will contribute and play a very important role. So the region dimension is very important to achieve the global agenda. The third element is that Paris Agreement, everything is done to make sure that the global agenda is met, the Sustainable Development Goal, the Paris Agreement, the climate change, whatever is going on here, and as well as other regional initiatives. And the most important, a very complex governance mechanism established. We heard what we do with the SECA, IMO does, PAMEX, WestMed, all this, all together, they are well coordinated with the PLIF as well, with another mechanism. We do have contribution from France, from Italy, so all this bringing the entire effort together, and this is something that was never happened in the past as it is happening now. And I would like very much to say also that the Barcelona Convention plays a very important role, being an international law UN-administered convention at the regional level. And in particular, I would like to thank REMPEC very much, which is one of the most important investments that the contracting parties to the Barcelona Convention, IMO and UNEP, has made by building it from the very first day of the map creation, and they continue to play a leadership role. And the challenge is implementation, Frank. Implementation is very important, and we need to gather all our efforts to make sure that the countries that have not ratified Annex 6, they have to do it. The entry into force of the SECA decision expected to be approved in December. It is in early 2025, so there is a very big need for us to coordinate the action for approval, for being proud of what we are committing ourselves, but also for implementation. I cannot say more because I understand we're out of time, but a big thank you to all the partners, and we look forward to see concrete results of the Mediterranean region for ourselves first, for our citizens, but also to contribute to the global agenda. Thank you.